Dana White has been appointed to the board of directors at the company known as Meta. Meta, if you are not aware, is the parent company of Facebook and Instagram. They are a big player in the AI space. They have that thing called Threads, and they are led by Mark Zuckerberg, who I'm sure that you are familiar with in some capacity. So, Dana is appointed to the board of directors. People thought that that was a little bit out of left field, but a lot of people are speculating that that is politically motivated. I would think that that's probably the case, because it also coincides with Meta announcing that they're going to be rolling back some of their restrictions on free expression as they see it. Now, I found this interesting for a couple of reasons. Obviously, Dana is very close with Trump. That's the AP article I have on screen here. Meta's new board includes UFC boss Dana White, a familiar figure in Trump's orbit. We know how tight Trump and Dana are. This is going back years and years and years. They talk about that a little bit in this article. Their friendship dates back to 2001. I was actually thinking about doing an entire video on the history of Trump and MMA at some point, which I could do in the future perhaps, but it's getting more and more intertwined by the day, it seems, you know? Because we had, on the other side of the social media landscape, Elon Musk getting cozy with Trump and showing up to UFC events and the like. So now Zuck, who he was supposed to fight at one point, if you recall, Zuckerberg and Elon Musk, gonna throw down in a MMA fight for the ages. Did not end up happening. Could still happen. Who knows? But that was a rumor for a little while there. So now Zuckerberg trying to get a little bit tighter with Dana, more so than he already was too, to an extent, because if you recall also, Zuckerberg at one point rented out the entire Apex. Do you remember this? There was an Apex card that was entirely empty, except for Zuckerberg and a couple of his people. So both of them have had their time of being cozied up with Dana. And it would seem that Zuckerberg wants to make that relationship a little bit stronger still. So that's the essential gist of this part of it. I guess I'll read a little bit of the article here, give you more context. Meta has appointed 3 new members to its board of directors, including Dana White, the president and CEO of Ultimate Fighting Championship, and a familiar figure in the orbit of incoming President Trump. Funny how all of these people are coming out of the woodwork to use Dana as a conduit. I would think that there's probably a good amount of that happening from all different walks of life. So Dana has kind of the pick of the litter, as it would seem, of who he wants to align himself with, and by extension, who gets a closer seat to the president. We live in very fascinating times here. The sport of MMA, which was once a fringe lunatics sport that was relegated to VHS trading community people and a few hundred people inside of a civic center in random cities that would have it, places that were accepting of 2 people fighting each other with very few rules, at least based on the times, now has international political power. Fascinating. The article continues. Tapping White to join the board could be seen as Zuckerberg's latest maneuver to improve ties with Trump, who was once banned from Facebook. Another thing that is an interesting note here. Of course, Facebook gets criticized often by a lot of different people for a lot of different reasons. All political walks of life have something negative to say about Facebook, but a very vocal amount of people on the political right in the United States look at Facebook as part of the corporate media elite, whatever the leftist media they would say, or, liberal media. I don't know. There's a lot of different versions of that, how they portray that, but Facebook is just an extension of that, the long arm of big leftism in the United States to a lot of the far right people. So at one point after the January 6th riots, I believe, where the capital of the United States was overrun by Trump supporters, Facebook had banned Donald Trump from the platform. Zuck is seeing that the president-elect is coming back for round 2, and he wants a more cozy relationship, which from a business standpoint, I think makes a ton of sense, right? Whoever's in power is who you want to be friends with, and that, I think, is one of the biggest takeaways we're going to have from this whole article, and basically the whole messaging of all of this is that everybody, when it comes to the highest levels of power in this country, is essentially a hypocrite. They stand for nothing. Whoever is politically advantageous is who they are going to have their alignment with because it's good for business. After Trump won re-election in November, Zuck dined at the president-elect's Mar-a-Lago club in Florida, and Meta donated $1 million to Trump's inaugural fund. I mean, I guess there's no more of a indication than that. But again, this don't think that this is a left or a right issue. This is a business issue. This is corporate America issue right here. Because this is the same as when people back in the day were talking about how Trump used to donate to Democrats. This is business. Whoever is in power is who you want to be friends with. It makes sense. So Zuckerberg dines at Mar-a-Lago. He donates $1 million to Trump's inaugural fund and puts Dana in a position of prominence on the board of directors at Meta. Other big tech companies such as Amazon have donated similar amounts. Exactly. Isn't Jeff Bezos, he's a co-owner of, I want to say like the Washington Post or something like that. One of the far left newspapers that's often cited as a liberal source. Don't believe anything that comes out of that newspaper because they're ultra liberal, blah, 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 that kind of thing. So Bezos donating to Trump's inaugural fund. It's business, baby. It's not personal. It's just business. Trump, of course, longtime fan and frequent attendee of major fights. One of the big reasons that I wanted to do the video about Trump and his history with the UFC and MMA in general is because he lives that shit. Think whatever you want to think about Trump's politics. He absolutely is a legitimate fight fan and a fight person. There's a difference in people when they're fight people. He's really one of them. He knows these fighters. He's out there tweeting about Hamzat. They were talking about how Hamzat, because Hamzat has visa issues, he had talked to Dana, and the person interviewing him had said, well, now that Trump has been elected, are you going to have Dana help you out with your visa issues? That's a very real possibility now, that Dana White has direct access to the most powerful person in the country. Already the head of one of the largest entertainment brands in the country as well, or at least growing to be one of them. And now, even more of a political figure because of it. So there is real potential that Dana could call up the president at some point and have major political issues swayed in his favor or the favor of whoever he wants. Potentially. Because Trump is right back to being Trump. You know, he's a shoot from the hip kind of guy, right? Kind of just does whatever comes to his mind. I mean, I have a friend from the Discord, shout out to Bloomis, who was just legitimately asking if Trump was going to be taking over, I think, Greenland, right? Wasn't he talking about going in and annexing Greenland? That's a legitimate possibility. That could happen just because Trump decided it. Just said, hey, we need Greenland, so we're taking it. So you have a guy that makes decisions that way just based on whatever comes into his head at whatever time. And now Dana has access to a dude who will make split-second decisions based on if his friend says it's a good idea. Pretty wild. White, in turn, has had speaking roles at the 2016, 2020, and 2024 Republican conventions and appeared on stage at Trump's election victory party in November, even speaking briefly to the crowd. Dana has been at several Trump events outside of those. You know, he's always been a very vocal supporter. They're legitimate friends. Like, they're just homies. So none of that's surprising in the slightest either. And that's another thing. Like, again, the political aspect of it aside, I think that Dana and Trump are very similar when it comes to their navigation of interpersonal relationships, because both of them are pretty much like essential loyalists at their core, which has its pros and cons. You know what I mean? Like, if you are cool with them, if you are supporters of them and what they're doing, they'll be cool with you. That doesn't take into account what you're doing external of that support, though. So, like, if you are, let's say, the leader of North Korea, and you are cool with Trump, he's cool with you. I actually gave him credit back in the first term for fucking with the North Korean dude. I gave him credit for that. I said that Trump going over there and trying to smooth over some relations with this country that is closed off from the rest of the world and hates everybody, most especially us in the United States. I was like, somebody's got to go over there and try to change this guy's mind. Now, I don't know if it did or did not do anything. They had a couple of nice photo ops. You know, they toured an amusement park or some shit. Like that North Korean amusement park that they got that's like only open when people are in town, and they spend like a month getting it ready and then it just languishes when it's not being used. Whatever. Point is that he's cool with Trump. Trump's cool with him back. So Dana, I think, is very similar to that. You know, and Dana, I think, is a little bit more spread out with it, but not so much, because I think that there are probably, even when it comes to like Democrats, that Trump would be cool with if they're cool with him. You know, he'd be like, oh, well, you know, I don't agree with the Democrat part, but he's okay. You know, that type of shit. Dana, of course, not a politician, so it makes more sense for him to not care as much about those things. But again, if you're cool with this person, they're cool with you. The two of them got tight early in the UFC's ascension, and they've been tight ever since. They talk on the phone regularly. Prior to the election season, there was a great interview with Dana and Piers Morgan, who I fucking hate. I cannot stand that guy. He is absolutely abhorrent. He's a terrible interviewer when he does not agree with a person. If he agrees with them, he'll give them all the leeway in the world. If he doesn't agree with them, then he is insufferable to listen to. And I think he's a pompous ass in the first place. But the interview with Dana was actually pretty interesting, because Dana doesn't give a lot of like long form interviews about him, like where he himself is discussed. So I thought it was pretty eye-opening to an extent. Like the stuff that he talked about, he talked a little bit about his early life and his family and that kind of stuff. There was some interesting information to come out from that. And one of the things that came out from that we're talking like maybe a year and a half, almost 2 years ago this interview was. I want to say. So this is way before election time. Dana was saying him and Trump have regular phone calls with each other and talk like homies. So they're just friends. Anyway, back to this article here. White has built the UFC into one of the most valuable, fastest growing, and most popular sports enterprises in the world, Zuckerberg said. I've admired him as an entrepreneur and his ability to build such a beloved brand. That I do legitimately believe Zuck believes. You know, because like Zuckerberg is a fight person himself to an extent. I mean, he's more of like a straight BJJ guy. Like, I don't know if Zuck is like watching a lot of MMA, but he was out there hanging with Volkanovski. I think he walked Volk to the cage at one point, didn't he? So maybe he's more of a fight person than I'm giving him credit for. But I do think he's a fan, and I do think that he sees value in Dana White beyond just politics. I just don't know what Dana White brings to the board of directors at Meta specifically, aside from political gain. Like, what is Dana White's input on AI going to be? Because that's a big part of Meta's long-term strategy, AI and the metaverse, which they're still trying to make the fucking metaverse a thing. No one wants the metaverse. The metaverse is a failure. Ready Player One is not going to happen. The metaverse reminds me of 3D television. The 3D television is the example I use a lot because people are like, oh, you know, you say that now, the future, it's going to be so much different, blah, blah, blah. There are certain technologies that humanity is just not going to adopt, I believe. Could be completely wrong. You know, you play this stream back to me in fucking 50 years and I'll eat every word. But I truly believe that there are just certain things that are not going to gain widespread adoption and popularity. It's antithetical to the way that human beings operate, like naturally. People do like to be closed off more so now than they ever have been. Obviously, I'm sitting alone in my place, streaming to a lot of people who are probably sitting alone in their places. So yes, I do understand that we are more closed off, but I don't think a lot of people want to sit in a virtual world and navigate through it via a headset like Ready Player One. I just don't see it, at least not with the current technology. And there's a lot of logistics that people don't consider when it comes to the metaverse. I would recommend the Folding Ideas video on the metaverse if you're wondering about some of the details that I'm kind of glossing over there. But anyway, back to the main point. What does Dana White bring to the metaverse or AI or any of this stuff? To get Zuckerberg's opinion about AI refereeing and judging in MMA? I don't know. Finishing up with this part of the article here, Zuckerberg is active in mixed martial arts. He's not active in mixed martial arts. He's active in BJJ and a consumer of the UFC brand. Zuckerberg and fellow billionaire Elon Musk seemingly agreed to fight in a cage match in 2023, but never happened. We talked about that. Again, that is an interesting part of this. You've got Zuck on one side, Elon on the other side, both trying to cozy up to Dana to get to Trump. It's a quadruple. They're not a couple. They're not a thruple. They're a quadruple. Fucking ridiculous. That's part one of this situation here, right? That Zuckerberg has appointed Dana to the board of directors. One of the big things that Meta is pushing now is, or pushing, I mean, they're rolling back. They're loosening up their restrictions on free expression, they call it. Because for a long time, Meta had been one of the more restrictive platforms when it comes to what you can and cannot say on their site, in their groups, in their comments. A lot of times people would see comments that get TOS'd, for lack of a better term, you know? Community guidelines comes in and stops you from being able to say what you want to say. So in addition to Dana getting named as a board of director inductee here, Meta says that they are going to be scaling back the amount of, for lack of a better term, censorship on the platform. And a lot of people, including myself, were like, oh, this is good. Except, much like their counterpart at Twitter/X in Elon Musk, it's selective. And I'll tell you how I know that it's selective and why I wanted to do the stream today. Boom. This is from 404media.co. I don't know if a lot of MMA media has been covering this yet. This just came out yesterday. But I actually signed up for an account at 404 Media just so that I can read the entirety of this article, because Facebook, right after, not even right after, immediately as they announce that Dana is a member of the board of directors, they start deleting internal employee criticism. They are censoring their own people. These fucking tech bros that run our speech platforms are a bunch of fucking hypocrites. Zuck is a hypocrite. Elon's a hypocrite. The current fucking YouTube person is probably a hypocrite. Susan Wojcicki, back when she was still alive, God rest her soul, was the punching bag of Facebook, of YouTube for so long as CEO of the company, because of the way that they enforce selectively their policies. Policies across these platforms are selectively enforced, is what I am saying, and it is no more apparent than right here, right now. So this article goes into it. Of course, you see Zuck, you see Dana. Insulting, criticizing, or antagonizing our colleagues or board members is not aligned with the CCE. And the CCE stands for Community Engagement Expectations. Meta's HR team is deleting internal employee criticism of new board member, UFC president, and CEO Dana White at the same time that CEO Mark Zuckerberg announced to the world that Meta will quote unquote, go back to our roots around free expression, 404 Media has learned. Some employee posts questioning why criticism of White is being deleted are also being deleted. So not only are they deleting criticism, they are also deleting questions as to why criticism is being deleted. They're double censoring. Bro. These tech companies are fucking hypocrites. We're going to make this platform more free and open to your thoughts and feelings, except for those thoughts and feelings that bother us. That was Elon Musk's whole problem, and still is. Elon is a little baby when it comes to Twitter. It's a free speech platform if you say the things that I like. Blue Sky, the new liberal safe haven, is another bullshit hypocritical place. I signed up for Blue Sky just so that I can make sure that I had YAMMA Show on there. I didn't even put anything out. I think I got one thing on Blue Sky, just a link to the channel. Already, they're censoring the Unknown Fighter logo. Fucking TikTok banned YAMMA from the platform. I assume because of the logo. They wouldn't even tell me why we got banned. All of these platforms are selective enforcers. They are big brother when it comes to your speech. You can say a lot of things, just not the things that we don't like. Monday, Zuckerberg made a post on a platform for Meta employees called Workplace, announcing that Meta is adding Dana White, John Elkin, and Charlie Songhurst to the company's board of directors. Zuckerberg's post on Workplace was identical to his public announcement. Employees' response to this was mixed, according to screenshots of the thread obtained by 404. Post the shots, bro. Some posted positive or joking comments. Major W, one employee posted, "We hire Conor McGregor next after work sparring." Another said, "Joe Rogan may be next." A third said. A fourth simply said, "Lol." That would have been my response, would have been lol, as in, lol, what does Dana White bring to the table in any way, shape, or form when it comes to the inner workings of Facebook and Meta? I mean, I guess you could say maybe UFC content in the metaverse? Like, if we're trying to be, like, less cynical about it, like, well, what's the actual reality of it? Yeah, maybe UFC in the metaverse, but he didn't need to be on the board for that. AI applications in sporting, perhaps. Dana has already talked about AI for ranking, so maybe there's something there. I don't know. But lol would still have been my response. Anyway, the article continues. But other employees criticized the decision and raised the point that there is video of White slapping his wife in a nightclub. Oh, yes. We all forget about that. YAMMA 1 material. The very first story that was ever covered on YAMMA was Dana White laying hands on his lady. How quickly we forget that was the case. Now, a lot of fight people don't give a fuck. They didn't at the time. White was not arrested and was not suspended from the UFC for the domestic violence incident. A lot of people in the community at the time didn't think that there should have been any backlash at all. Now, I don't necessarily think that he needed to be arrested for it. I mean, maybe. If she had wanted to press charges, then perhaps. I mean, if you go back and look at the footage, she was being unruly. She hit him first. Look, you can look at that a couple of different ways. There is never a good justification for laying hands on your lady, of course. That's baseline. However, there are levels. I think that that's just the reality of it. If there's, if Cyborg is coming up to you and throwing legitimate punches, I mean, you're just supposed to cower? Again, so there's levels. Was he supposed to be arrested for it? Whatever, you can have your opinions about it. He was not suspended from the UFC for the incident, though. That, I think, is a little bit of a different issue. Because that signaled that the rest of the organization, anybody else, I mean, it signaled two things to me. It signaled, one, that no one else in the organization has as much power as Dana, which I think you already kind of knew, but if you needed any further proof, there's your proof. And two, that even with that dynamic, even with Dana being in the power seat, there's not enough groundswell amongst the people around him for what I would think would be the right thing. I don't think that Dana needed to step down. I don't think that Dana needed to be ousted from the sport or ostracized from the UFC, but I do think that some type of response would have been warranted. Aside from Dana saying, this is a private family matter, that's all I want to say about it. I've got to explain it to my family. That's enough of a punishment. I mean, yeah, that's what you are able to say because you're the one in the middle of it, dude. The organization probably should have done something. She hit him first. That's important to keep in mind. Don't care too much. Yeah, I mean, that's basically what I just said. She was drunk. I mean, you could tell. It was a situation that got out of hand. I actually kind of agree with his assessment. It was a family issue. I mean, it's not right that it happened, but really more of what it looked like to me was that he was trying to settle her down and just didn't do it the right way. So, if you want my unbiased opinion about it, based on the video footage outside of the YAMMA episode from episode 1 of the show, yeah, she was getting unruly. She was hitting him. You could tell she was like yelling and stuff. They're in a nightclub. They're in Mexico. They're drinking. After he wrangled her up, he just held her pretty much. Then they got broken up. He's not beating his wife. That's what I'm saying about there being levels to it. He's not beating his wife. She was getting crazy. She was throwing hands. She was getting out of line herself. She needed to be calmed down. It was not the right way to calm her down, but it was not domestic abuse. This is not battered woman syndrome. This is not I hit my eye on the doorknob. You know what I mean? She didn't have a shiner because of it. Keep it in perspective. However, from public perception, this is something that should have been addressed, I think. Purely from optics, even if you don't want to think of it as the worst way of the situation being handled. You know, again, if you're thinking of it the way that I'm describing here with there being levels to it and everything, again, I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying that there are levels to it, and that was, you know, on a level that is not the same as a dude who's out here smacking the hell out of his woman, you know, for not cooking the chicken right. Either way, it still happened. It was still public knowledge. It was still on TMZ. I think that it should have been handled differently, I guess is what I'm getting at. So anyway, the point is that, but really all of that issue there, what I'm talking about with that, is secondary to the fact that it's perception from people outside of the fight world. That's what you got to keep in mind with that when it comes to this. These are not fight people. These are fucking nerds. These, you want to talk about like the fucking, the ultra liberals with the, you know, the multicolored hair and, you know, the polyamorous, you know, lifestyles and all this type of shit. Your new age people, you know, the bold new world of what humanity is trending towards, which I personally have no problem with, but a lot of people do. I see it from an outsider's perspective when it comes to all of this, because I will criticize all of these people on all sides of the aisle because they're all a bunch of fucking idiots. Conservatives, idiots. Liberals, idiots. Fucking, you know, the Antifa fucking blue-haired transgenders, idiots. The alt-right fucking, you know, Richard Spencer-haired Nick Fuentes motherfuckers, idiots. So my point is, looking at it objectively here, these are the people, when they read this shit, that's what they're taking away. These are not fight people. They don't know this fucking world. They're not involved with this shit. They're a bunch of people who push buttons on keyboards all day long, making sure that your likes get tallied up correctly. I'm certainly not privy to the lifestyle that a lot of these fucking dweebs are living, that are making Facebook possible for the rest of us. My point is, when these workers at Meta find out that Dana White is working there, that's what they go to. And in this instance, from the bird's eye view, I don't think that they're 100% wrong in saying, damn, we've got a dude who laid hands on his lady and got away scot-free because he runs the company on our board. Now, they drag Connor into it. That's the next thing here. That's garbage. That's absolutely fucking garbage because Connor has nothing to do with any of this. Connor and the assault case, I've talked about that plenty of times on the channel. I talked about that for 3.5 hours in a video if you want to go watch all of what I've said about that case. He has nothing to do with this. I don't know why he was brought into this, but one of these people says, kind of disheartening to see people in the comments celebrating a man who is on video assaulting his wife and another who was recently convicted of the R word. That R word being rape, of course. One employee commented, referring to White and McGregor. I can kind of excuse individuals for being unaware, but Meta surely did their due diligence on White and concluded that he did, and what he did is fine. I feel like I'm on another planet, another employee commented. We have completely lost the plot, said a third. This is what you will be getting from this. So to think that this is an unwarranted backlash, I don't think is true. B, how could you not have seen something like this? Well, Facebook, I guess, either didn't see it or didn't care, because if people start talking shit, what do? Turn on the censor machine. Memory hole that shit. Big Brother is watching your workplace comments. Several posts critical of White were deleted by Meta's internal community relations team. The internal community relations team, dude. That is the inside Gestapo. That's the internal affairs of the Meta secret society, the Meta cabal. Who's watching the Watchmen? Well, we know. The internal community relations team. Several posts critical of White were deleted by Meta's internal community relations team as violating a set of rules called the Community Engagement Expectations, which govern internal employee communications. There's your HR. In the thread, the internal community relations team member explained why they were deleting content. I'm posting a comment here with a reminder about the CCE as multiple comments have been flagged by the community for review. It's important that we remain a respectful work environment where people can do their best work. We need to keep in mind that the CCE applies to how we communicate with and about members of our community, including members of our board. Do not criticize the boss. Bro, talk badly about the party, get your 30 lashes. Insulting, criticizing, or antagonizing our colleagues or board members is not aligned with the CCE. Fall in line, bitch. Fall in line. In 2022, Meta banned employees from discussing very disruptive topics. Quote unquote, very disruptive topics. Now, granted, I do understand, to play Zuckerberg's advocate over here, I understand that disruption of this type is not good for business because you don't want your company to be engaging in internal fighting and infighting. You don't want your people to be going at each other's throats when they're supposed to be coding your website correctly. I get this. However, if you have these platforms where people are supposed to be able to react, what do you expect? This is what I'm saying. Like, that's what I'm talking about when I say, like, looking at this, like, from 1,000 yards away. Like, did they not expect that their type of people were going to have this response? Did the people responding expect to not be censored by the hypocrites that they work for? All of this is making perfect sense to me. It's just funny to me that it is such a front and center example of it happening right after Facebook claims that they are going to be loosening their standards when it comes to free expression. Free expression for when you're using the platform as a civilian. When you are on duty at this company, you do not have the same luxuries. Of course, that is the case for any employee. It's the same argument for back when Colin Kaepernick was kneeling for the national anthem and people were saying, well, you're talking about your politics at your job. You should just be doing your job. If you don't like the people at your job telling you to stand for the national anthem, you can get another fucking job. And that's true of Facebook too. So really, there's not anything super wrong with them doing this type of censorship. However, the fact is that Facebook, as one of the major outlets where communication happens in general now, social media has taken over the discourse on this planet, which is a big reason why we have gotten to where we have gotten, period. Every single person yelling at the top of their lungs every stupid fucking thought that crosses their mind. It's a little bit different, is my point here. If you're a small company, perhaps you limit these types of interactions. People don't speak as loudly. You are a community. How big is Facebook in general? As of December 2023, Meta has approximately 67,000 employees. Over 67,000 people work for this company. How do you think you are going to keep that many people in line when it comes to these types of things? They have an entire internal network for people to have conversations with each other, a la Facebook for Facebook. They have a Facebook for their Facebook. Do you not think you are going to get the same shit here? So when you post this kind of stuff, people are going to have this response. All of this is making complete sense. It's just goofy as fuck, especially given the circumstances. One employee posted, "Why do critical comments of this announcement keep getting deleted? Lol, my comment got CE'd too. Good stuff," a second posted. A third said, "I think it's particularly fascinating that none of the comments I have seen disappear containing any specifically prohibited content under the CEE and must have fallen under disruptive content. And if any criticism of company decisions falls under the disruptive content bucket, the future of the company is looking bleak." There you go. You are in a hive mind. If you are not part of the hive mind, you are cast out of the hive mind. Either that or you are silenced before being cast out. Again, these are big brother tactics and that type of thing. First, you are silenced. If you continue to disobey, you will be re-educated. If you do not re-educate, you will be deleted. Or, in the case of 1984, specifically, you'll be re-educated and then still deleted. Disruptive content. No disruptive content at the platform where free speech is being once again championed. Tracy Clayton, a Meta spokesperson, told 404 that no changes to the CEE have been made and stressed that some criticism has been left up. There are also several comments that have expressed criticism that didn't violate the CEE that remained up, Clayton said. Our CEE is very nuanced, and it's not a one-size-fits-all. Yeah, very nuanced. Do you know what very nuanced means? It means that we will pick and choose when we want to enforce things, and then we can always fall back on some clause that we have bent to the specific situation at hand. So if we say that this comment is something that we don't want to see on our platform, well, subsection 2, paragraph B says X, Y, and Z. Well, if you interpret it the way that we interpret it here, it violates the CEE and thus is disruptive content. The hypersensitive moderation of employees internally criticizing major public figures is particularly notable given that Tuesday morning, Zuckerberg announced that Meta would get rid of many of its content moderation rules on its platforms. It's time to get back to our roots around free expression and giving people voice on our platforms. Here's what we're going to do, Zuckerberg posted. Replace fact checkers with community notes. Starting in the US, simplify our content policies and remove restrictions on topics like immigration and gender that are out of touch with mainstream discourse. That I am completely fine with. I think that is great. Wish that everybody would do all of that. Let everybody say all of their dumb shit. Let it all be said. Get the dumb shit out into the open. It's sad and really telling in our current times how many people believe a whole heap of dumb shit, but you do not limit free speech. That is an absolute. Joel Kaplan, Meta's new president of global affairs and the former Republican political operative who served in the George W. Bush administration, posted about the changes internally on Workplace, saying the policies were intended to foster more speech and fewer mistakes. So what you're seeing here is kind of a familiar narrative when it comes to the right's quote-unquote love of free speech, because often you have these people who try to claim that they are advocates of free speech on the political right in the United States, and really what they are is people who just want to be able to say their shit and don't want the other side of the equation to be able to say their shit. They are fucking hypocrites. A lot of them. Not all of them, but a lot. So what we're seeing, though, is that Zuckerberg and Meta, in order to adapt to the current landscape, are moving more to the right. They have donated to the Trump inaugural fund. They've got a political activist from the Republican Party as their president of global affairs. They are moving towards taking away restrictions on topics that are traditionally talking points of the right, and they've added UFC president Dana White to the board of directors. But people who are critical of that, they don't get their say. So I don't know. Is it actually free speech? Is it actually a move towards free speech? Beats the fuck out of me. One employee brought up this apparent disparity. Given Zuck's message this morning on decreasing content moderation on our platforms, is that also going to apply internally? Nope. The rules for employees, the internal content moderator responded, are different than the rules for the public. The CEE, which is focused on mitigating the potential for disruption and allowing us the place the space to work, ensuring a respectful work environment and protecting company information is different from our external content policies. Exactly. Which is fine. That in and of itself is fine. It's just a funny irony that you're doing one thing on one side and another thing on another side. Rules for thee, not for me. Rules for them, not for you. CEE is quite chilling, another said. Basically, any large scope critical post I make gets at least one message from the internal community relations. Yeah. And again, like I've been saying over and over here now, there has to be some level of difference in the rules. There has to be some version of what's acceptable internally with the company as opposed to what is acceptable for the public. I do get that. But it's the application. And again, the selectiveness of the application. It's always case by case. That's what I kind of at this point just wish that these companies would be more honest about what they actually want. Because if they were more honest about what they actually want, instead of trying to play this fucking game of being fair and then just not doing it like behind closed doors, then at least people who use these platforms would be able to navigate the bullshit. Same with this situation for these employees. Just tell us what we can and can't say. Like here, I guess they're getting a little bit of that. They're getting the company saying that criticizing the board of directors is something that they can't do. So fair enough then. At least that's something that they know that they cannot do. I wonder if you're an employee of Facebook and say these types of things on your personal Facebook, if you'd get in trouble at the company. That's a good question. In a comment that has not yet been deleted, an employee posted, "Since my other comment was taken down, I'm just going to let everyone know that I, for one, love my wife and daughter, and to top it off, I also respect other people." Yeah, very soy response there. That soy passive aggressiveness, but that person's navigating. That person's navigating. Say it without saying it. Sad that you have to do that, but they won't tell you what you can or cannot say. That was what I was kind of getting at there. It's like, I wish that they would just be honest about what their actual guidelines are. These are the things that if you say them in any capacity, we're going to come after you. Just be that honest about it. Fuck, I wish it was that honest for YouTube. If they would just tell you a list of words that you can't say so that all these people who have to jump through hoops for their monetization could navigate that correctly, then there you go. That'd be a much better place. People having to say that, somebody unalived themselves as opposed to someone committed suicide. They're saying the same fucking thing. They just have to say it a different way. So if you want people to have to go through your fucking dog and pony show, just be honest. Just be honest. They are liars and hypocrites. Our CEE has nothing to do with the announcements made today. Internal and external moderation are separate, and I'll repeat that it would be inaccurate to report that we're loosening restrictions externally while tightening them internally, Tracy Clayton, a Meta mouthpiece, told 404 Media. It's important to note here that these comments were, as you see there, flagged by the community for review. Further background, our CEE is designed to help minimize disruption so employees can focus and remain productive. Why have the ability to have these free-form styles of conversation if that's your aim? You should just have these things completely restricted to only work-related topics then. And no opinions. No, don't let people have their opinions. If that's the way that you want this to operate, if that's the goal of what your secret police is, just don't let people do it at all. Have that as your company policy. Oh no, that's too restrictive. General public wouldn't agree with that. Well, apparently the general public is just okay with anything now. And also, they're so powerful at this point that the general public's opinion does not matter. That is the same for X. That is the same for Meta. That is the same for YouTube. That is the same for all of the major social media platforms. It is too ingrained in our society. They are monopolies. They are monopolies that are beyond reproach. They are beyond the scope of any one government. They are global. People talk about a new world order. Social media is your cabal. And within the cabal now, Dana fucking White, bringing it right back to MMA. So there you go.